Did you know that if serviced wrong, your laptop charger can send more than 200 volts of electricity through your laptop, frying it and possibly electrocuting you? In this video, I will teach you how to be safe when repairing your computer. Hello, my name is Kenny Carfagno, and this is part 1 of a 3-part series on basic computer repair. Today we will be focusing on the safety so that you and your computer don't get hurt or broken. Because many things can happen when repairing your computer, something as small as a cut on your finger to breathing in dangerous dust to even possibly electrocuting yourself. Also, comment whether or not you have ever tried to fix your own computer before and how it went. And I will be giving away a free tip at the end of this episode on how to keep your computer not broken when trying to fix it. The first thing we're going to look at today is keeping you safe. One of the best ways to do that is making sure all power is drained out of your computer when repairing it. There's a couple things you're going to want to do to make sure that has happened. First, you're going to want to remove the charger so it doesn't charge. Second, you're going to want to take the battery out. And third, you're going to want to power cycle it or hold down the power button so that all of the electricity can get drained out of it. Another thing you're going to want to do is have body awareness. Know where your face is. Keep your face away from the computer so that you don't breathe in any of the parts. Or dust. Not that you would breathe in any parts because it's a little bit hard to do. But definitely dust. And you're going to want to know where your fingers are so that you don't get them caught or cut them on sharp edges, or even break parts with them. So you just kind of make sure you know where your body is. The next most important thing that you're going to want to think about when repairing your computer is the computer safety, because the last thing you want to do is break your computer when you're trying to fix it. So first off, you're going to want to wear one of these. This is an ESD electrostatic discharge strap. And what you do is you take the strap, you wrap it around your arm, and then you're going to want to take the clipper piece and clip it to some sort of solid metal. That way, any electrostatic that may come onto you, rubbing your hair, whatever, can get discharged through this so it doesn't go into your computer and fry it. Alright, you're out. Another thing with electrostatic discharge is these bags. These are ESD bags, and they are for keeping your parts in when they're not in your computer. And they also, like the wrist strap I just showed you, keep your parts safe from electrostatic. You are always going to want to be gentle with your parts. Being rough with your parts can break them like that. And they're just broken, so you're going to want to make sure you always keep your parts safe and be gentle with them. Another thing, don't mess and take apart something you don't know what it will do. I have done this before and I've ended up breaking the entire computer by doing so. It doesn't have to be that way. Just know what you're doing and you won't break stuff as often. One more thing, you're going to want to make sure that you do all of your repairs on a flat, clean surface so that you don't lose any of your parts and not be able to put it back together. Another really important thing that you need to do is use the right tools for the right job when repairing your computer. Just by using the wrong tools, you can break it. Personally, I have used the Rosewood computer repair toolkit that I got on Amazon for $60. And it has been great for me. I'll put the link in the description. Now in to the actual tools. Let's start with the obvious one. You're going to want to have a set of small screwdrivers for getting all of the small screws. And oh, wow, those are really pointy. So, safety rule number 1. Don't poke yourself. Because I now have marks all over my arm and it really hurts. Don't do it. Please, I'm begging you, don't poke yourself with a little rusty screwdriver. And then there are bigger screwdrivers which have the sockets for putting a ton of different heads in them. And you can see all the different heads here. Lots of heads, lots of different options. Also, if you cannot reach some spots, there is an extender piece for the large screwdriver so that you can reach the harder spots. And then if it falls out of your reach, then there are these tweezers and these tweezers for getting them out. And if you don't want to use tweezers, there is a magnetic screwdriver. It's not an actual screwdriver, it's just a magnet. And watch this. It extends, which is really awesome. Warning, keep this away from hard drives because magnets can ruin hard drives permanently. Just a word of warning. Another tool you're going to want to use is a flashlight so you can get into the dark hidden places and see because it's really dusty in there. And speaking of dust, you can use a paintbrush to dust all of the dust away. And then there are wire cutters for cutting wire. And some needle nose pliers for needle nosing. And that is just about all of the tools that you'll need to fix your computer. Alright, it is time to get some hands-on experience with taking apart computers. First off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it apart and then I'm going to put it back together. So the first thing that you're going to do, like I said before, unplug it. And you want to take the battery out so that you don't get electrocuted. And then power cycle it, hold down the power button for a couple seconds, just to make sure that there's no excess battery in it. Once that's done, you can take it apart. On most computers, it's going to start on the bottom. So you can see all the screws here, and I will be putting all the screws in here. So I take it apart. As you can see, some of these screws are not coming out right away, so I'll take my magnet and I'll just pull them out, which is nice. Little tip, if you have the magnet piece, you take a screw on the end, it can fit better into small spaces. So some parts that drag on, like taking all the screws out of the bottom, I'll speed those up. So I'll go ahead and do that now. Alright, that's it for the bottom. I don't know if you can see too well, but next to these two screw holes are little keyboard symbols, which means that they hold in the keyboard. And usually there are some screws that hold it in from the top as well. So I am going to try under the keyboard. You're going to never want to pull something right away when you're doing a repair because it could break the whole system. You got to be careful. Think logically with every step you do. You're going to want to check for screws before you try to pull it apart. What I'm trying to do now is take the entire top cover off, but to do that, I got to get to the screws I think are under the keyboard. So I'll take that off next. And for taking it off, what I'm going to be doing is peeling away at this. It's just like little snap pieces. I just take a super small flathead screwdriver and pop it in there, and then I can get a little bit of grip and slide it along. I got this. These things are pretty easy to unplug. All you gotta do is just get the screwdriver under it, pop it up, and then you can slide it out. And it's the keyboard. Keyboard's out. Alright, there are a ton of screws in here, which I'm now going to take out. So I will come back when these are done. Alright, I have taken all of the screws out now. Now I'm going to undo these tabs because they are most likely connected to this plate, which is what I'm going to pull off next. So I'm just going to peel all of these off. This looks like it has a little bit of electrical tape stuck to it, so I'll save that for later when I put it back together. Another hinge piece, which I will pop off and slide the piece out. And that looks like it. Now I am going to pull the whole thing off. And for this, you're going to want some sort of library card, which is what I use, a debit card, credit card, something that you're okay with getting broken, something old. Alright, I got my library card. I'm going to try to peel it up with my fingernails or get in here with the flathead screwdriver that I've got. There we go. Once you get a little bit of space, you slide the library card and just swipe it. The popping sounds are good and they are normal because it's supposed to be held together not by just screws but the plastic case that surrounds it. Alright, and there we go. It's off. Put that to the side. Here's where we get into the actual components now. We have cracked the case off. What we're going to start with here is we're going to start with the hard drive. Pop the hard drive out. Pull away the flaps. This is the hard drive caddy, the case for it. So we're going to pull this out and then we can pull the hard drive out of the case. There's just 2 screws in this case because the other 2 screws come up from the bottom. So I'm just pulling out these 2. Now I can just pull this out and unplug it. In most laptops I find it's more of a slide-in type approach, but this one has a little bit of wiggle room. So I got the hard drive out. I'm not going to unscrew it from the caddy for this video. I don't need to, so I'm just going to set it aside. Alright, next is going to come out the Wi-Fi card. Oh, we need a small screwdriver for this. That's why it's handy to have a whole set. Some screws are smaller than others. There we go. You're not going to want to forget which sides this black cord and this white cord are on because you got to put it back together later. Take that Wi-Fi card out. Alright, so the order for taking things out is usually the hard drive first or the RAM, but we can get to that. You really got to take it out as it looks like it should come out. So in this case, it looks like I'll take maybe this piece or the fan out next. The motherboard is usually one of the last pieces to come out, so I'm not going to do it yet. I think I'll go for this USB hub type thing. So I'm going to pull it out. And it just slides out. Now for the fan. Looks like it's in a couple parts. This part here and this part here. We'll go for this part first and then see if we can get this part out next. There's the fan. Just unplug it carefully from the motherboard. Next, I believe the motherboard gets to come out. So I'm going to get all the screws that attach the motherboard. In this case, it looks like there's just 2, but there's usually a bit more. Let's see if this comes out. Always be careful. You don't want to force anything out. It looks like this needs to come off first. This is the screen connector. You can see it because this black cable runs all the way up into the screen. So we're going to unplug this. There's this tab, and there's looks like another pull tab here. So I'm going to just slide it out. That is for the webcam and mic. And that's just tape. Let that slide out. And now we can let this motherboard just wiggle out. It's also connected to the charger port, the DC jack. So I'm going to flip it over up a little bit and then pull out a little port. And just look for other parts that are connected to the motherboard if you don't want to yank anything. Alright, that looks about it. Whoop. So this is the motherboard. You can see it's got the RAM on it. So I'll take the RAM out, both RAM chips. You want to set everything in a safe place as soon as you've taken it out so that you don't break anything. The CPU is under here, but I'm not going to take this apart, and not the graphics card either. So set those aside. I'll take the charger out too. Why not? Why not just take the charger out? We've already gotten everything else. You should always be checking for screws while taking your computer apart. The last thing you want to do is pull something out that wasn't meant to come out and break it. Oh, there we go. That piece comes out. There's a little bit of tape connecting this, so I'll peel away the tape. It can't come out until I take the hinge off. So I'm going to take the hinges off next. And this metal piece here, this is a brace. This connects all the way to the hinge, keeping it so that the plastic doesn't break around the screen here. And I got to keep my weight on the bottom panel because right now the screen is heavy. It wants to make the whole thing tip over. That's it for that side. Now let's do this side. When you're unscrewing the last couple screws to the screen, make sure you hold the screen so the whole thing doesn't just topple over. That's not the best. Alright, we can now pull the screen out. Do a little bit of wiggling of these wires. Pull the rest out. Be careful around the hooks. And the screen is out. I'll put this over here somewhere safer. And this is the bottom. We can now pull the charger out. There's a little tab, looks like I gotta pull back. There we go. Little charger piece. And that's it. That's all you gotta know to take it apart. You just gotta be careful when taking it apart, putting it back together. So I'm gonna get my paintbrush I talked about earlier, just all this dust. Just give it some swiping, clean it out. Getting like the tighter areas. I wanna get this all cleaned out so that it's nice and dust free. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put it back together. Remember, as we took it apart, we're gonna put it right back together. The last thing we took out was the DC jack. This takes the input from the charger and sends it to the motherboard to power the whole thing. We're gonna put it back in the same exact orientation we got it from. Let it click in. And then next, I believe we put the screen on. Fit it in right as we got it in the first time. Make sure all the wires are set in right. I'm gonna hold it still with one hand while I get a screw with my other hand and get it lined up. See this? I have magnetized my screwdriver, so it does make it easier on me to pick up the screws. So I do advise doing that because it saves a ton of time. Oh, that didn't go in right. I gotta tuck it in to the brace, which I have forgotten to do. I'm gonna pull back a little bit. There we go, tuck it into the brace. That's better. I'll get the rest of these hinge screws in. So I have been doing this for quite a while now. When you first get started, what you're going to want to do is take the screws that come from certain places and put them into different like separators. All right, that is, I believe that's it for that part. Let's put I remember we put the cover. There's this little charger cover that we put on next. That went there. And then I believe it was the motherboard. So we'll take the motherboard, we'll put the RAM in. The RAM is the short-term memory. So anything that you may do, like before you save a document, all that is saved on the RAM. And all of that memory gets wiped if it loses power. That's why you want to save it. And if something runs out of battery and crashes, that's why you lose all of that stuff. And the motherboard is the giant brain of the system. It keeps everything running together. The CPU, which is right under here, is the thinker of the system. It keeps it runs all of your processes. Well, without the CPU, you don't really have a computer. It's more of just a bunch of mangled parts. Put these all back together as I got them. Plug in the charger. There's this little wire here. These go to the speakers. Get that plugged in. I'm always being careful with this because the last thing I want to do is get this broken. Make sure all the wires are tucked away where they should go. I'm gonna make sure I get the heatsink away right. There we go. And the heatsink takes the heat from the CPU because otherwise it would overheat and it just sends it out through the fan. I'm gonna make sure that all of these ports are lined up. Otherwise it's not gonna work right. Screw all the screws back in. Always remembering to put it back together in the same order that you took it apart so that you don't mess anything up. And you never want to screw any screws too tight because that can damage components. You want to make it tight, but not too tight, if that makes sense. So like feel it out, like once it starts getting hard to screw, then you no longer want to screw it anymore. Fit that back in. Now, what's really convenient is most of these cords have little hooks that keep it in place. There we go. Put the tape back up, line up with the holes, cover up the tape, plug in the webcam, plug in the screen. Be very careful with the screen plug-in because screens are like the most fragile parts. There we go. It'll usually snap once you've gotten it in, and you can usually tell a good snap from a bad snap. Alright, I think the fan went in this way. No, it didn't go in this way. Gotta figure out which way the fan went in. Aha, there we go. I had it upside down. Now tuck it under the way it's supposed to be. Plug it in. If you forget to plug it in, then the computer will not start because without this essential cooling, the whole thing will crash, and you don't want to do that. Next, I believe I put this little USB hub piece in, which is another just tuck in piece. I will now take one screw, which is all it took. Make sure it's lined up. Hold it so it doesn't fall over again. And screw it in. Next is the Wi-Fi card. For this, it's literally just like a little tuck, and it just like has a little flappy down. The RAM is just like this. It's sort of like you stick it in gently and then you push it down gently. And I do remember that the screw for this one was tiny as a tiny screw. I think that's this tiny screw here. And you sort of got to like push the whole thing down, then put the screw in. And like you can see, a screw doesn't go here because there's a little piece sticking out of it. Alright, time for the hard drive. Always be careful with these little pieces here. They are very fragile and they break very easily. Pull that back. Plug it in. Line it up. And there's little arrows, you can't really see where the screws need to go. There's an arrow there and there's an arrow there, which means I'm only going to put these two screws in. These ones come in from the bottom. So that is quite helpful. As you can see here, they're actually almost like pointing where they should go. So I'm just going to line them back up and push them back in very gently. There's one. It's sort of got like a little satisfying click. There we go, okay. It's lined up, send it through like, it's got like a little spot for it to go. Send it through there. There we go. Now, we're gonna plug this piece back in, gently slide it in, and then put the flap back on. You use this little tab to help. There, we got that. All that's left now is just to put this piece back on. And we are just about done. So I'm not going to pop it in yet because I personally think it is much more satisfying to let it pop in itself when you screw it in. So we're going to do that. I don't know how many of the popping sounds you can hear on camera, but it's just so satisfying. I'm also going to plug these back in because I can now. Start with this one. Lift the flap up, slide it in, and pull it down. This bit of tape that was here for this one is attached like that. Time to put the rest of these screws in. Let this go multiple speed for a little bit. I put all my screws up here so I can get them back better because it's pretty hard to reach them again once they're in a little tin like this. And I'm pretty sure that's all the screws. Oh, one more screw. There we go. Now I'm going to carefully make sure I plug the keyboard back in. I have taken apart computers, put them back together, and forgotten to plug the keyboard back in and wondered why the keyboard didn't work. So don't forget to do that. There's little notches in the bottom of the keyboard. So I just slide it in, and then I pop it and just That is 100% therapeutic. Turn it upside down. Now for the bottom screws. And after these, we are done. Oh, that's so nice. Just taking apart a computer is worth it for that sound. Ooh, that was a good one. I'm sure I get the rest of these so we don't leave them untogether, because they need to be together, not untogether. Untogether is not good. Alright, so the last screw. Plug the battery back in. Make sure we got the right side. Open it up. It looks good. And there we go. That is how you put together your computer. I almost forgot the free tip for today's video is whenever you are taking apart your computer, you record it. If you record it, it makes it so much easier to put it back together, because then you look at the recording, say, ooh, oh, so that's what I did on this. Okay, yeah, I'll put it together back like that. Oh, that's where that screw came from. I found that really helpful whenever I got started with taking apart a computer. If you have made it all the way to the end of this video, congratulations! You now know how to keep yourself safe while repairing your computer and not breaking your computer at the same time. If you have any questions about this topic, please leave them down below and I will get to them as soon as I can. If you would like to see the rest of the series, go up here for the full playlist. If you would like to see more content like this, subscribe and enable notifications so that you don't miss out on any of my new videos. And I will see you next time.